3, 2, 1.
Car. So what we did in the, when we were younger was we took 3 basketballs. We had 3 friends, one friend. And when a car went past our driveway, we would take a shot at a basketball hoop in our driveway. And so when
Oh, what's really interesting is that you actually mentioned basketball. You see, I was actually a basketball star, you could say, for multiple years. I played basketball for a large number of years in my life, but at one season, I actually played on 2 separate teams, which is really fascinating because we, play each other in teams. So I actually, throughout the season, I played 2 games every Saturday, sometimes even facing my same team. So basically, when we face each other twice a season, I would have to choose which team to play on, and it was really...
Speaking of Saturdays, so what we did every Saturday is we had a bonfire. Those bonfires, we played a game called Flashlight Tag. And in Flashlight Tag, we took our neighbor's house, our house, and then the other neighbor's house. And then we took one person with a flashlight, and everyone went to the woods in the back and hid. They had poison ivy back there, no one got infected. And so there was poison, there's not poison ivy, but there was poison ivy, no one got infected. So we took flashlights, and then everyone went and hid. And whoever got out first, you had to say their name. You had to say their name out loud. That was a key point, and that's key point in the flashlight tag is you got to say their name out loud.
Okay, well, another interesting thing that you mentioned about flashlights is I used to play a lovely game called Ghost in the Graveyard. I actually still commonly play that with my cousins and everything. And it's really fun because my grandfather has this really huge estate, a lot of land, a lot of woods. And so we would all hide basically all around his house in the woods, in the bushes, and we'd just go around with a flashlight trying to find each other. It is so scary. It's actually kind of terrifying because you're just going around and people can jump scare you. And the thing is, we actually turned it into Ghost in the Graveyard tag. So basically everyone had to try and find the ghost. You had to call out the ghosts ahead of time, but if they were starting to chase you down, it was basically like a game of tag. You had to go back to the safe point in order to not be tied and turn into a ghost in that graveyard. But what's also interesting is Casper the Ghost. I don't really know where I'm going to go with Casper the Ghost, but I just really like the idea of Casper the Ghost. He's the good ghost. I don't even know what's up with Casper the Ghost. Is Casper the Ghost even a thing anymore nowadays? I remember him growing up, but I mean, anything could be anything nowadays. They could have completely changed his character. I know they once made a live-action film of Casper the Ghost. I wonder if that movie even still holds up. It's probably actual garbage, but who actually knows? Speaking of garbage, I found so many fun things in the garbage at work this week, including several doors, which I actually recently sold for some money, which is very lovely. I recently just met a man who is a veterinarian who is going to actually buy.
So we found a hobo in the woods in the backyard of one of my friends' houses. What? So it was a nice covered twig little hut thing. And so we found it. We didn't find the hobo. We didn't find no hobo. So we went out there and we played laser tag. My friend had a portable laser tag set that was mobile. And so what we did is we went to each side. It was winter, and so it was snowy. It was very, very cold. And so we went to each side. I would yell go, and so my brother and my friend would go, and they would stalk each other, and then we snipe each other. And it was probably one of the funnest laser tag instances I've ever seen. Speaking of bowling, I only got one turkey in my entire bowling career, and it was for my grandfather because I was bowling for him because he didn't want to bowl that time because he was busy smoking over in the side. Speaking of smoking, my grandfather used to smoke a lot, and he still does.
Okay, so going back to laser tag, what's actually really interesting about laser tag is that we should actually convert all laser tag places into Nerf war zones. It would be so cool because you already have this established area that could easily be a laser tag thing. I understand laser tag is cool and all, but I love Nerf. I really want to have a nice area where I can just have a giant ass Nerf war with multiple levels and you try and shoot at each other. Plus Nerf bullets don't hurt. Even then, I know laser tag doesn't really hurt you at all, but Nerf bullets, you can feel it, so it's oh no, I died, and then you die. It would be so cool to actually go to a place like Zap Zone and just convert everything into a Nerf zone. Speaking of Zap Zone, I actually hate how some Zap Zones have a little glow golf place because they suck. They are not good go golf places. You can hit everything in 2 strokes and it doesn't matter. No matter how close you are to a hole-in-one, they make it so that if you go too hard, you're just going to overshoot. If you undershoot it, of course you're going to undershoot it because you don't have enough power. But there is no proper way to get a hole-in-one at any Zap Zone establishment.
Speaking of like going mini golfing is like one of my favorite pastimes in terms of anything that is, like any activities. Typically, speaking of activity, like science activities, I always thought they were fun. In class they give you like, oh, it's activity day, but it was just literally a worksheet that you do after an experiment. It wasn't fun. It was just an activity. Speaking of that, going back to mini golf, I went to a few mini golf courses that were actually really fucking good. This is in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and so we were going to these mini golfs that were and pretty much near the beach. And they had like 3 different levels, and they had like 2 different golf courses. They all had like longer things. They all had like actual contraptions that you go into to put the ball through. And so those are the mini golf courses that I really enjoy. Speaking of Myrtle Beach, It's Sugar is one of the best stores known to man. If you don't believe me, go to a store called It's Sugar. You will be amazed of how much is in there. And so It's Sugar is one of the has giant sugar daddies. Mind you, these are giant sugar daddies. These are lollipops that are called giant sugar daddies. They also have like gummy candy stations, kiosks, and they also have, of course, the plushies. And also, speaking of candy, I went to Hershey Park this past summer. In Hershey Park, it was fun and all, and I stayed in the line for 2 hours just to see someone faint and die, and then also went on the roller coaster afterwards, and that took about a minute, and so that was not as good as you'd think. Sure, it was an upside down course, and I'm all right with that kind of stuff because I'm somewhat of a thrill seeker, but at the same time, I'm also kind of reserved and all that. And
I kind of like how you claim that you're a thrill seeker because there are so many times where I ask you to go out and do things with me, and you're just like, no, I'm going to stay home and do nothing because that's just the kind of person you are. Honestly, I'm kind of envious about that about you, though. It's really cool how you just kind of like have this whole world at your fingertips on your computer. Like you can do so many things on your computer, and you have so many friends online. And I'm low-key kind of jealous of that because like I don't necessarily know how to make online friends because I was always told making online friends is how you meet strangers, and strangers are going to kill you. And so I never attempted to make any.
I just didn't believe
friends.
my parents when they said that to me. So and also I'm going to pull up on you here. I do like how you're able to get out there and all that. You act much more like an extrovert than we do. We both are extroverts and introverts. We could both do either side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I would argue that we're both very extroverted introverts. We're very much like homebodies, but I mean, we have the opportunity when we go out that we could be very extroverted. I feel like I'm slightly more extroverted than you are, just period in general, but you still shine in your moments. Like when you go out dancing, it's so much fun when you come out dancing. You only come out for like an hour or whatever, but honestly, it's great just because then you just show up, you shut the fuck up and go home. I mean, that's just the golden rule. The 3 S's. Yeah, show up, shut the fuck up, and go home. I just, I do appreciate and how you really put yourself out there when it comes to doing different things or doing new things or getting new things started. I enjoy that about you specifically. And so, speaking of, going back to, kind of like bring yourself out there, my first time I ever broke dance in a public scenario was actually in middle school, called an after school activity. Those were the dances of middle school time periods, and I actually did that. There was also the circle in there that I used there's a video of it on YouTube. I saw it once and I never saw it again afterwards because I couldn't tell. I didn't want to go back to it, really. I didn't want to go back to that. And so it was just a circle people, and I just kind of flopped down like a dead fish. And so people started cheering, and I was like, okay, cool. Maybe I can actually teach myself how to do this. Didn't you do the worm at that dance? Isn't
Yes.
that what you were doing, the floppy fish thing, the whole worm? I actually remember seeing you do that. That was like early on, because middle school was when we met. And it was really interesting just because we met in a very awkward circumstance where it was kind of like we sort of hung out, we sort of did things together, and then we kind of did, and then we did, and then eventually in high school we started doing a lot more things together.
That's because you were the only person from middle school that actually joined me in high school.
Well, I mean, what's also on top of that, though, is that you started doing a lot of things that I wanted to do. You joined theater. It was so much fun having you in theater. You know what? Fuck you. I'm not going to make this an appreciation video about you. I'm going to keep talking about other bullshit.
That's why I changed the topic, you dumbass.
Well, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to keep talking about things. You know what's really weird? Fucking water. Why is water
so wet?
First of all, yes. Why is it wet? Why is water so wet? It doesn't really make sense physically or naturally.
It does actually make sense physically and naturally because it's biological and it's water.
But anyway, water is so fucking weird, especially our tap water, because our tap water has a lot of things in it. I understand.
They're like white little things, they're like white little cumlets that are just inside the tap water. We get a Brita filter that's black in the bottom of it, and so we pour the tap water in to get nice little filter experience, and then it turns white.
So that way you get the cumlets out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really don't like those cumlets, but I mean, that's kind of the water that I just drink. It's better than Flint water, don't get me wrong, but like, it's just
Anything
so
is
weird.
better than Flint water.
Anyway, I really like how many fucking pull-ups you can do. I hate that you're stronger than me, probably. We need to do a fitness test
We
to
do
actually
need to do a
determine
fitness test.
how strong we are.
Speaking of water that is injected into your mouth when you don't want it to, I used to go to the beach a lot, and that's when I used to taste a lot of salt water. Those salt water is not the funnest thing, but I used to always get slammed on the beach and like the waves on the beach. Like when you were a kid, the waves on the beach were a lot more intense than what you realized.
Oh, I 100% agree. I absolutely love the waves. I love the beach. I love going there, but I fucking hate salt water.
That's 10 minutes. Good shit.